Welcome to the San Gorgonio Chapter Trail Talk series. My name is John St. Clair, and I am your host, your Zoom host for the Trail Talk series. I'm also one of three of the members of the Trail Talk Committee, includes myself, Karla Kellems, and Julianne Anderson. And Karla Kellems will be our presenter tonight. Her topic being about wildflowers. And I want to talk about some other things first, however. First of all, I'd like everybody to be muted unless your name is Karla or John St. Clair. And if you have questions during Karla's presentation, what we would like you to do is to write the questions in the chat section. So at the bottom of your screen, there should be a little talking bubble icon with the word chat under it. And if you click on it, on the right-hand side, it will open up chat. The default is to send it to everyone, and that's probably what you should do. I'll leave it on that. And just type in your question there. And then if at some point she stops and says, are there any questions, I will relay the questions from the chat session to Karla, and then she can answer them. And also, of course, at the end of the presentation, I will look at the other questions that are in the chat section and relay them to Karla at that time. The Trail Talk series is being recorded, and San Gorgonio Chapter has a wonderful YouTube channel that is quite a repository of useful information. And if you registered for this, unless it was the last minute, you should have gotten a reminder message from me, an email that included the link to the YouTube channel. And so if you're not able to listen to this whole presentation, or if you'd like to look at last week or last month's or last year's presentations, you can do that at your leisure on the YouTube channel, and you just click on that link. I'd also want to mention that we started the Trail Talk series when the outings program was shut down, just to keep people thinking about the outdoors, because the motto of Sierra Club is explore, enjoy, protect. And the outings program does the first two quite well, exploring and enjoying the outdoors. And when that was shut down, that's why we started the Trail Talk series, just to keep people thinking about the outdoors and ways that they could explore. Even though Sierra Club was not leading hikes, they could go on family hikes, and we gave information about that. But now we have outings, and I just did a Sierra Club hike today to Timber Mountain, elevation 8,303 in the Cucamonga Wilderness. And you can see those outings listed the same place you go to register for these Trail Talk Zoom sessions. So if you like to get outside and hike, take a look and see if there's something that looks good to you. So I'm looking real quickly. It looks like everybody has muted themselves, so that's good. And at this point, I'll introduce, one other thing I want to mention. Next month's Trail Talk series is titled Explore Eastern Oregon, and it's presented by Marianne Reese, who is our recently past chairperson for the San Gorgonio chapter, and has been the chairperson for Sierra Club California a number of years as well. Very active in Sierra Club, and she's gone on some wonderful national Sierra Club trips, as well as personal trips in Eastern Oregon. And she will share photos and impressions of these public lands formed by volcanic action, tectonic plate movement, and erosion of ancient lake beds, Great Basin sage, pinyon pine forests, and many wildflowers that bring the landscapes alive among the unusual formations of stone and volcanic eruptions. So that's next month's Trail Talk, exploring Eastern Oregon. Okay, so now to tonight's, and Karla Kellems will be our presenter, and Karla is an outings leader and outings chair in the Mountains Group. And she also works for the San Bernardino Mountains Land Trust. And she is the director of outreach and the Native Tree Nursery Project Coordinator. So at this point, I'm going to remove my spotlight and put the spotlight. Oh my goodness, where did you go, Karla? My goodness. Maybe I can do it here. Yeah. Okay, there's Karla. Take it away.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for the presentation, and I'm going to have John Sinclair. He's going to monitor the chat because there might be some opportunities for you to write something in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my presentation here. And I'm going to set up my slideshow. Here we go. Okay, so just to make sure, can everyone see my slideshow? Great, great. I can't see anybody anymore. So please interrupt me if need be.
Well, put it in the chat.
Okay, or put it in chat, yes. So John can interrupt me. Go ahead and put it in chat. But I just wanted to talk briefly today about how to appreciate wildflowers responsibly. This is a very important topic because we don't get to see wildflower superblooms very often. They only come about every 10 years on average. And I think it's really important that we protect the ecosystem of a superbloom. Uh-oh. Is the
It hasn't moved.
It hasn't moved. Great. Okay. It's not moving right now.
How about the arrow keys? Will they make it move?
Oh, that's what I was trying to do. Great. There we go.
You've got a blotch on it.
Oh, okay. Let me get rid of that blotch. Is that blotch going away at all?
Now you moved it a little. It hasn't gone away. Maybe we can move it off to the side.
Okay.
Right now it's covering your text. It wasn't there until you got to this screen.
Yes, and I apologize, but the title is "What is a Superbloom?" And while I try to figure out how to get rid of that blotch.
Okay, it's gone.
Okay, so what is a superbloom? A superbloom is a rare desert botanical phenomenon. Usually happens in California and Arizona, in which an unusually high proportion of wildflowers whose seeds have laid dormant in desert soils will germinate and blossom at about roughly the same time. And it tends to be associated with wet years. And of course, as most of you know, we've had a very wet year this year. And just for fun, go ahead and take a look at this picture. If anybody knows where this picture was taken, and I took this picture just last month, I went to this location to see the flowers. So if you can put in the chat where you think this location is, I'll see if you are correct.
Carrizo Plain?
Yep. You get some bonus points who said that. This is the Carrizo Plain. So just out of curiosity, and I like to have a little interaction here. So people in the chat, I want to let you guys know that I am not a flower expert. I am what I call a flower enthusiast. I like to go out and I like to try to find these super blooms. And I like to find places that are kind of out of the way and not well known to the public. Because I like to see areas that aren't being overwhelmed with people and stuff like that. So where is the best place to see a super bloom? If you've seen a super bloom recently, go ahead and throw it in the chat. Where was that? So go ahead and throw in the chat. Where did you see a wonderful super bloom?
Okay, Lori Borer says Whitewater.
Okay.
Chris Torres says near Lake Matthews. Jean says Anza Borrego.
Yeah.
And Kathy Cole says Canyon Hills, Lake Elsinore. And Lori Borer says Diamond Valley.
Okay.
And Chino Hills.
Awesome. All those, yes, are places where you can see super bloom. Many of those are very popular places, like my picture before, the Carrizo Plain. I'm surprised nobody mentioned Antelope Valley, where the poppy preserve is. That's another place. I heard Anza Borrego. Some of the things that I'm not too familiar with would be Lake Matthews and Diamond, I think it was Diamond Valley. But those are definitely probably good places to see a super bloom. But usually you hear the real common places like the Antelope Valley, the Carrizo Plain, the Anza Borrego. So just out of curiosity, looking at this picture here, where do you think I took this picture? Any guesses out there? Go ahead and throw it in the chat. Let's see who can get it first.
Harford Springs Reserve.
Good guess. Not quite. Any other guesses out there?
Carol Kinzel says at your home.
I wish, Carol. I so wish this was at my home. This was definitely a beautiful area. Just to kind of give you a hint, it's one of the more common places you would see the poppies. So if anybody can think of where that could be. This was actually on my way out to the Carrizo Plain.
By the way, Chris Torres said, I got to Antelope Valley too late this year. End of April, there was mostly nothing left.
Ding, 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 ding. Chris Torres, you just got the bonus point. You are correct. Even though it was just a comment, you guessed where I was. I was at Antelope Valley.
And actually another one came in, Lori Borer said that, Antelope Valley.
Yes, Antelope Valley. I was on my way out to the Carrizo Plain where I took the pictures that you saw previously. The flowers are absolutely gorgeous. And it was definitely a super bloom season. So I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, but I thought I'd just throw out some ideas, some things to think about in regards to etiquette. And of course, in the Sierra Club, we always have this philosophy of leave no trace. And that goes with super bloom hikes as well. So what that means is you stay on the trails and the roads. Try not to create or encourage social trails. Where you see other people walking off the trail, don't do what they're doing. Refrain from picking, stepping on, lying on, driving over, riding bikes through, landing a helicopter on top, and any other activity that can damage the fragile ecosystem of super bloom. And it's really sad, when I was out at the Carrizo Plain, I saw a lot of people wanting to get that perfect selfie. So they would lay in the middle of the flowers and munch them down and damage them. And it was really sad. and it was all about getting that perfect selfie. I saw a family driving one of those little wagons. They had a little wagon with kids in it, just dragging the wagon behind them all through the flowers, just munching them down with the wagon wheels. In the past, you've heard of people riding motorcycles, riding mountain bikes through the flowers. And there was one incident that happened a few years ago where somebody decided to land a helicopter on top of a bunch of poppies. And because of this, some of the more popular places, an area out near Lake Elsinore, I believe that might be Lake Matthews area, they actually had to shut down their preserve during the peak season of the flowers because of damage due to people not having SUPERBLOOM etiquette. Of course, you don't litter, keep your dogs on a leash and on the trail. And I always ask myself, what would happen if everyone did this? If I were to cross over this barrier, if I were to go down this social trail, what would happen if everyone did this? And just kind of keep yourself in check. And just remember that SUPERBLOOMs only happen on average every 10 years. So this is something that most of us will only get an opportunity to see maybe 8 times, maybe 10 times in our lifetime. So it's very important to just remember that. And again, I'm having problems with my computer advancing. Hold on just a second.
We got the blotch back, but maybe if you can go to the next screen, it'll disappear.
Yeah, that's what I'm working on. It's not wanting to advance.
I can see your arrow moving around. Your cursor. Lorraine Turk said, I've seen people use the almost invisible arrows at the lower left of the PowerPoint slide. Lower left. Huh?
Okay, I'm looking for almost invisible arrows.
Ah,
there we go. Okay. They are invisible, you're right. I can't even see them. Okay, so next thing, I apologize, I am working with an old computer. So the next thing we want to talk about is when you do plan a trip out to see a SUPERBLOOM, it's always nice to have your references. And for you tech savvy people, here's a couple examples of some of apps you can use to take pictures, and then they will identify the flower for you. If you're like me, just a flower enthusiast, you don't know, all your flowers by heart, then this is a great way to go. I like to use PlantNet. That's usually the one I use. For some of you old school folks, you may still feel comfortable carrying around a reference book or a reference pamphlet of some sort. Here's an example of some that I recommend. I actually have 2 of these, and I really enjoy it. I do really like the pocket guide, the Wildflowers of Southern California. It's just like a little folder pocket guide, tells you all the more common flowers. If you want to get really into it, you can get some of the larger books like the Wildflowers of California. With any Sierra Club activity, we always encourage people to have their 10 essentials, no matter where you're going. Even if you're not planning on going far, it's always important to have your 10 essentials because you never know what's going to happen. So that would be your extra layers, in case the weather changes on you and it's springtime and all of a sudden it begins to rain. It also means having your map, your compass, a way to navigate, your first aid kit, of course, extra food and water. When you're out in the springtime, a lot of these places where you're going to view the flowers is going to be in the desert, and it can be very hot and warm. So you want to have your sun protection, and also some emergency equipment, headlamp, a knife, a lighter, stuff like that. So the first place I'm going to talk about where you can see flowers is not really known to a lot of people. What you're looking for is a very specific flower that blooms in this area. And I don't know if you all are familiar with the Santa Ana River. There is a Santa Ana River Habitat Conservation Plan general area. If you can see my map there, you'll see right going through one of the roads going right through that area is called Orange Street. If you were to drive on Orange Street in Redlands going through the Santa Ana River riverbed, you are going to see a spectacular display
Lower left.
Yes, lower left. Let's see here. Yeah, Westward. Okay. Okay, here we go. A spectacular display of the yucca whipplei, which is also known, people call it Our Lord's Candle. And right now is a good time to go check that out because they're in full bloom right now. And it's absolutely gorgeous. There's just huge areas within the riverbed just covered in these huge, large yucca flower that shoots up on a spear, and it blooms and it's absolutely beautiful. There's something I found. There's actually a flower book specific to the Santa Ana River. So that would be another option for a reference. The next one we're going to look at, somebody came really close to this one. They said whitewater. Yes, whitewater does have some nice flowers, but I've been to both Whitewater and Mission Creek Preserve, and I think Mission Creek Preserve has just a little bit more bloomage than Whitewater. And you can see a map here, and the Mission Creek Preserve is part of the Wildlands Conservancy, and so is Whitewater. And there's actually two hikes here that you can connect the two. But the main area that I'm focusing in on is the red hike, outlined there with the red line, that starts at the gate and goes up about approximately a mile. And within that mile, you're going to see some really spectacular things. So here's what you're going to see. You're going to see these big old rock buildings. You're going to see beautiful super blooms of brittlebush going off. There's also some other yuccas, some purple fillery. And then if you look off to some of these slopes as you're walking along, you're going to see these huge, beautiful fields of purple. And this was, these pictures were taken when I did a Sierra Club outing there on the last Super Bloom that we had. And I can't remember, I think it was in 2017 or 2018, one of those years. And I wouldn't call it so it was a very wet year, but this year the Super Bloom that we're having is much more spectacular. So the next place that I recommend, if you're looking for something more out of the way, maybe not as many people there, would be the Big Morongo Canyon Preserve. And here's just a really nice map. I do want to point out that the Big Morongo Canyon Preserve, they do not allow dogs, so keep that in mind. They do have a great, wonderful trail system that's well signed. And it's a great area to view flowers. Some of the things you're going to see at the Big Morongo Canyon Preserve, you're going to see some big, huge patches of like a purple filiary. And this is actually a picture, and I believe she's on tonight. My friends from Washington State, Teresa and Brian, are on. Teresa actually took this picture, and she was wondering what this flower was when she went to go visit the Big Morongo Canyon Preserve. So Teresa, your picture made it into my slideshow, which is awesome. The other picture that you see is a white flower, and that is called the yerba manza. The yerba manza really likes wetland areas, really moist areas. And what's really great about years that we have very wet conditions, like what we've had this year, is it actually expands their habitat, which means allows them to expand their area of presence, which is really wonderful. You get to see, instead of small clumps or small groups, you get to see larger clumps and larger groups, more like a super bloom. The next area I wanted to point out is as you're driving along, so we've been to the Santa Ana River, we've been to Mission Creek, we've been to Big Morongo. Now we're headed more east towards Palm Springs. And what's really unique is just looking during a super bloom year, look under the windmills as you're driving out towards Palm Springs. And you'll see beautiful fields of yellow. And one thing I recommend is, I know they do the Palm Springs windmill tours. If you go online and look up Palm Springs windmill tours, I recommend trying to book a tour on a wet year sometime in April. And you'll get like firsthand up close experience to some of these beautiful desert super blooms that are happening right under the windmills. And it's kind of an interesting contrast to see these windmill infrastructure, and then right below these beautiful flowers. So I know we're starting to get later into the season of the super bloom. Some of the areas down in the desert have expired already, but don't worry, because there still is areas if you go higher in elevation. So I'm going to talk about some of the areas you can go to later in the season to still capture some of the wildflowers and the super blooms. So the first one I'm going to check out is called the Pebble Plain Ecological Reserve. It is a preserve by the San Bernardino Mountains Land Trust. And it is located in Villa Grove, off of Villa Grove. So if you were going to locate the trailhead, the best thing to do is go to Google Maps and go ahead and enter in Villa Grove Avenue, Pebble Plain Trailhead, Big Bear Lake. And it will take you right to, if I can get my cursor here, right to this location right there where my cursor is. Hopefully you can see that. And that's a good place to start. It is signed, and some of the plants you will be seeing there, of course, are some of our endangered, threatened, and sensitive species that we are trying to protect, like the Bear Valley sandwort, the Southern Mountains buckwheat, and the ash gray Indian paintbrush. But what you'll also see is some of our more common plants out in the Pebble Plain area. And this is a beautiful picture that was taken by Ed Wallace from the Big Bear Sierra Club group. If you know who Ed is, we'll give a shout out to him. This picture shows the Douglas violets and the vetch, a type of vetch that grows out on the Pebble Plain. And what's really interesting is you think of the word Douglas violet, you think, oh, that must be the purple flower I'm seeing. Actually, the Douglas violet is the yellow flower that's in this picture. And there's some, interesting tales as to why the Douglas violet got its name. And the one, I don't know if it's true, but somebody mentioned to me that bees don't see color like we do, and they may see yellow as being more of a purple color. I don't know if it's true, but it's kind of fun to mention that the Douglas violet is actually the yellow flower. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was I wanted to give a pitch, because there is, if you guys are still looking for flowers, you're still eager to see flowers, we have a hike going on, and this is going to be sponsored by the California Native Plant Society, and it's a field trip happening this Sunday, May 21st, 2023, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. plus, depending on how fast or slow they go. But this will be a really great opportunity to learn more about flowers up here in the Big Bear area. The leader will be Dr. Tim Krantz. He is one of our Pebble Plain species experts up here. And he is going to give a special tour of the Baldwin Lake Ecological Reserve. So if you're looking to see where that is located, you can go do a Google Maps search, and you could type in Baldwin Lake Ecological Reserve. It's on the east end of the Big Bear Valley, here up in the San Bernardino Mountains. And the reserve has a wonderful diverse flora, some of the most diverse flora in California, of over 250 species. And it's a Joshua tree, pinyon juniper woodlands, you got Jeffrey pine trees, you got kind of an alpine, you got the Pebble Plains out there, just like the Pebble Plain Ecological Reserve. So you're going to see a lot of the same species. There's some alkaline meadows, and there's many species, including some of those endangered species that I had mentioned in the slide prior, are endemic species, meaning they only exist in the Big Bear Valley. And so there's some that are, there's also very elusive flowers out there, like what's called the eye strain monkey flower. And I'm excited to see that one, because I don't think I've ever seen that one before. So I recommend, if you have the time on Sunday, to go ahead and cruise on up to Big Bear Lake. It starts at 10 a.m. Sunday, May 21st. Sorry, I think I said Saturday. It's actually on Sunday. You do want to RSVP to rsvpnps@gmail.com.
Now, there's a comment saying that Lorraine Turk says she heard that it is already filled up.
Oh, no. I was afraid of that. Okay, I apologize, folks. I should have called ahead of time. But you know what? If you call, and actually what I would do is I would go ahead and try to RSVP. I think if Tim Krantz gets enough extra people who are interested, he'll probably offer this again, and then you could be put on a wait list. So I definitely recommend, if you're interested, go ahead and let them know, go to the Gmail and see if there can be another hike added, or or you could be put on a wait list. So I definitely recommend doing that. And I apologize, I didn't know it was all the way full. Bummer, I was actually going to sign up for it and I didn't get a chance. But that is okay. So just in the chat, is there any questions?
Well, comments mostly. Chris Torres mentioned she saw a lot of yuccas in the Lone Pine Canyon near Wrightwood in the past. And I might add, the Baldy area, the yuccas are really beginning to sprout up too as well. And yeah, Lynn Sweet mentioned the name of a flower, but I don't know which one it was. Anemopisis californica or something like that. Okay, and I definitely appreciate the feedback on the flowers. Yeah, I did not anticipate going into in depth on flower species. It was more just kind of an overview
So I appreciate that when you guys see flowers that I post. Thank you for putting that in the chat.
Yeah, no other questions that I see.
Okay, and in regards to the yuccas, the Our Lord's candles, as people commonly call them, they're also all over the foothills of the San Bernardino Mountains. They are totally going off this year. That's just incredible.
Lynn Sweet said that the scientific name she gave was for yerba mansa.
Oh, okay, for the yerba mansa, yeah. Which is a really neat riparian plant. It's one of my favorites. It's just so unique looking. So is there any other burning questions?
I don't see any at this point. Oh, Win Tran mentioned that iNaturalist is another great app for getting information about flowers and stuff.
Yes, there's quite a few out there. Yeah, I only mentioned a few that I've used, and so far I think the PlantNet is the one I've used the most. But yes, there's whatever app that you're familiar with, that you're comfortable with, I definitely recommend. Many of them are about the same caliber. They don't always identify super accurately. But when it comes to some of the more common flowers that you see, especially the common flowers that you'll see in a super bloom, they're pretty accurate.
No new things.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate this. I know it was a little shorter than we usually do, but I wasn't sure how many questions would be there at the end. So I wanted to be prepared with extra time.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing it, Karla.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen.
And still, I'm getting lots of thank yous coming in on the chat.
Oh, thank you guys. And I see a lot of people I know, Hugh, Bailecki, Sandy, Ellis. Hey, I want to give a shout out to everybody. So good to see everybody. And I appreciate you guys coming to support me in my flower talk.
Yeah, so now I have it on speaker mode, so whoever talks can be lit up. Well, thank you, Karla. That was great. It's, you said usually once every 10 years, but actually it's been less than that since the last one.
Actually, it has. Some have been more spectacular than others. I think there was a super bloom back in 2000, I want to say 2017 or 2018, that was pretty good, but not as spectacular as this one. So it all depends on how much moisture we get. So if we get a lot of moisture, then we tend to get more flowers. But on average, they say, about a spectacular one about every 10 years.
Yeah, a number of people appreciated tips on places to look for flowers, like the Mission Creek Preserve.
That one surprised me, actually, because I've been out there a lot and never really saw anything until that one camping trip that I organized for the Sierra Club. And all of a sudden there was all these flowers everywhere. It was incredible.
And Chris Torres mentions that, as you mentioned too, that higher in the elevation, things haven't even started blooming yet.
Exactly. Yeah. And the one thing I forgot to mention is the best time to come to higher elevations is actually going to be in June and even into early July. If you're looking at 6,000 to 8,000 foot elevation, that would be a good time to come up and see the flowers. They're just now starting to pop out, but I think they'll become more spectacular as we get into June.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I think I may stop the recording now.